That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna impeach George. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna impeach George. That's what we're gonna do. And we'll impeach Cheney too.
My question for Representative Dix is simply this. I really want him to tell us who he thinks he's representing, the Speaker of the House or the constituents that he has in the 6th District. We need to impeach Cheney and Bush, and I'd really like to see him convince Representative Conyers to bring it out of committee and put it on the floor.
Well, Norm, my name's Albie Baker. I live in Port Townsend, Washington, and you're one of my elected officials. Empire building and war, environmental and economic exploitation, corruption, thrown elections, secrecy, propaganda, lies, torture, the degradation of constitutional protections and rights, immense scale theft, and murder, including the betrayal of our own soldiers. On and on the list grows, and Katrina's aftermath as a cherry on top to show us, if we didn't get the message before, that we the people are on our own. I don't recognize this country and I'm ashamed. Knowing your own compromised circumstances, I hesitate to entrust you to bring the people's will. These petitions for impeachment may well be wasted on you and your colleagues in these times and crimes. Most of you are due for a reckoning with real justice and accountability. I hope you're listening, Norm. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Doyle and I'm from Forks, Washington, and I'm here to encourage Norm Dix to impeach Cheney first and President Bush. The reason we need to impeach them is not necessarily to punish them, although that does need to be done, but for our next president. Our next president does not need to have these powers and does not need to be able to do to our country what those two have done to our country. And this is also one more reason that we need to impeach those people, as these men and women are serving. They're from the west end of Forks of Clallam County. We have 18 names on here. I have at least 10 people who have come home that have served over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and each one of those folks needs to come home safely. We've already lost one person. Jason Hansen was killed over there. It is not worth those lives in Iraq.
And we gathered signatures throughout the entire district, District 6, asking Norm to support or initiate a petition to impeach George Bush and Dick Cheney. Passion is really high. I mean, it's really high, nationally and locally. But we also want to give him 3 resolutions in his district, 3 counties, Democratic organizations in 3 counties, Jefferson County, Clallam County, Grace Harbor County, have all also passed resolutions for impeachment. In Washington State alone, the Washington State Democratic Organization have passed resolutions such as this in 11 Democratic legislative districts, 5 counties, and the Washington State Democratic Central Committee. There are a lot of reasons for impeachment if you look on the internet. We chose 4 in this petition, and I'm going to read them real quickly. Okay. The first one is violating Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution by lying to Congress and the American people to justify an illegal and unauthorized invasion of Iraq. The second one, violating Amendment 8 of the Constitution and the Geneva Convention by approving torture of prisoners and using a signing statement in December of 2005 to assert his right to ignore Congress's express prohibition of torture. Violating Amendments 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the Constitution by detaining Americans, legal residents, and non-Americans without due process, without charge, and without access to counsel. Violating Amendments 4 of the Constitution and the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act by secretly approving wiretaps and electronic surveillance of U.S. citizens without a court order. And I believe he subsequently lied about that. These 4 we chose because we feel they really affect all of us as American citizens. I'd also like to speak quickly to a couple of the arguments that I always get when I talk about impeachment. Number one, there isn't enough time. Andrew Johnson's impeachment took 2 weeks. Nixon resigned quickly after just being threatened with impeachment. And Clinton's impeachment was started in the last half of his last term of office, and I think it took about 3 months. So anything that this Congress can do to show that they're listening to the people, that they're willing to stand up and fight for the Constitution that they took an oath to fight for, can only raise their standing in the eyes of the American public. We also need to tell future presidents that they can't act like a monarchy and they're not above the law. People of all political persuasions should be frightened by this.
Problem is, too, we don't know that Bush will leave office on January the 20th of next year. We think he will, but there is that problem of martial law, which could be imposed. And he's trying, it seems, to set up a situation whereby he would be able to do so in Iran. And it'd be easy, as many other dictators have done, it would be easy for him to impose martial law and say, well, the country isn't ready for an election yet. If we can cause him to be occupied with impeachment, we might be able to prevent that. I am not saying that will happen, but we didn't think he would invade Iraq either. It wasn't a rational thing to do, but he did it, and he's done a lot of other irrational acts.
This is Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution of the United States, and it's central to what we're talking about here. The President, Vice President, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. So this is the passage that we're asking Representative Dix to enforce by having the Kucinich impeachment bill freed up from being locked in to the committee that Representative Conyers is heading up. That's a deliberate plan, in my opinion, to kill the bill and to kill impeachment. If ever there was a time in United States history to enforce Article 2, Section 2 of the Constitution, it's now. I can't think of any other president or vice president or presidential administration in this nation's history that deserves the scrutiny of impeachment by our Congress. And to me, it's an act of treason by Representative Dix if he does not move on this. Who is he listening to? Representative Pelosi or his constituents?
I just wanted to present an example that might explain my feeling about Nancy Pelosi saying that impeachment's off the table. If you had your neighbor shoot his wife on the front lawn and leave her in a pool of blood, and you phoned the police chief and said, my neighbor just shot his wife, you've got to do something, and he said, I can't do anything about that, I'm too busy trying to get elected. Okay, we've had the equivalent of murder, okay, happen in our government. It certainly is murder in the case of war, which is an unjustified war. And yet nothing is being done. This is insane. This is the job of Congress. They need to get going.